So, you finally decided to play Deadlock, you played a couple games, maybe you got rolled, then you came to YouTube looking for some tips. Or maybe you watched my new player guide. Whatever reason you're here, first of all, thank you for not rage on installing the game. Second, let's talk about some beginner tips for Deadlock. We're mainly going to be talking about the macro game, not individual characters or anything like that, to get you onboarded, since if you're here, you're likely new to the game, or maybe you're still figuring things out. I've also been playing with a bunch of newer people, and I've been asking them what they would want to have learned much faster than they ended up doing, so let's chat. I'm going to assume that you're familiar with the game as a whole. I'm not going to be explaining how the game works here, so check out my introduction video if you're truly starting from scratch. It's in the description. Also, Deadlock is updated frequently, so some stuff in here might be incorrect in terms of factual information like specific timers or amount of money, but I think the guide should be somewhat relevant for a while. There's some stuff in here that I did mention in my intro to Deadlock video, but I put it here again just in case you didn't watch that one. I want to start with some more basic tips, things that are a little more cut and dry pieces of advice that you can apply to your gameplay, and then we'll get a little more abstract with macro advice and more general gameplay advice. The honorary mention of advice I will give first is to please play bot matches and or street brawl to learn a couple of characters first before stepping into the normal queue against other players. When you don't know what the other characters do, it's really easy to get confused or frustrated because you just don't know what to expect. Try to mess around on as many characters as possible to get a feel for their kits, even if it's just wandering around the sandbox for a couple of minutes. Then pick 2 or 3 characters that you really want to start learning. This way, if you don't get your main priority, you'll likely get your second priority. My longest streak is 32 games in a row getting my main character, so more often than not, you should get your main once you've got a few games on them, but you do always need to be prepared. Street Brawl is a great low-stakes way to learn characters too. The games are short, there's no farming involved, it's all random, all mid from League of Legends, except you actually get to pick a character. Not only this, but the map is more than just the 3 lanes and some alleys between buildings. There are tunnels, jump pads, rooftops, teleporters, side rooms, and plenty more to know about the map to use to your advantage. Spend some time just wandering around and exploring. Tip number 1. Practice basic movement techniques. We talked about this a little bit in the intro video, but I cannot emphasize enough how important movement is in this game. Deadlock has a lot of different movement tech, from dashes, jumps, wall jumps, air dashes, BLJs, bomb chew hovering, and like a few other things. But beginners are just gonna mash on the dash button 3 times in a row, burn all of their stamina immediately, and then run into trouble. The very first thing to learn is the dash jump. This is where, after you do a dash, your animation may vary, but it's a dash, you can do another long distance jump which chains from that dash. The timing on this is very specific. It's a short window of time where your stamina bar turns blue, but you'll never use this visual aid after learning how to do this move consistently. You'll eventually develop a feel for the timing of the jump, and it will become second nature. Not only that, but you can then chain this dash jump into a slide to maintain some momentum and keep your speed high, or you can chain it into another air dash, although you're going to burn all your stamina doing this. A couple of items do require a jump dash to activate as well, including kinetic dash, which is a pretty popular item. Otherwise, there is a lot to learn when it comes to movement, but one priority should be sliding. If you watch any of my or any high-level players' gameplay, you will see a lot of sliding, especially down a flight of stairs or after a dash. Pretty much any situation where you need to be moving somewhere else. You can even hold slide after mantling a ledge to gain some speed. Sliding keeps a good amount of your speed from these movements and lets you navigate around the map much faster than you would normally be able to by just walking. You'll eventually be comboing movements like dash jumps into a slide, into a bunny hop jump, into another slide as a way of traversing the map normally. It's a very good habit to get into, although combat-based movement won't be as cut and dry because you need to manage your stamina a little bit more aggressively. Also, movement speed or stamina increasing items are some of the better items in the game because they allow you to move around the map much faster, and getting to objectives faster means you can do more of them. Most builds tend to have some kind of a movement item, although which one depends on the character you're playing. Yes, they might not directly increase your power, but they allow you to do more things, which in turn can get you more power. You also get some vitality investment bonus, and a move item like Enduring Speed combined with an item like Counterspell will give you a nice chunk of health. Tip number 2, hit those sinners. Around the map, represented by this symbol, is the Sinner's Sacrifice Machine, aka what I've been trying to call the Goody Hut. It's not catching on, I'm really trying though. I assume you know how this machine works if you're here, but I will recap. You break the machine as all of the lights are lit with a heavy melee attack to get 4 permanent buffs. Or you can do a light melee to get 1 buff, but you should really try to do the heavy. I mentioned Sinners here again because in the early ranks, people don't really do this objective that much, and it is one of the most valuable objectives on the map at pretty much all stages of the game. They spawn in at 8 minutes, and they respawn when destroyed after 5 minutes. If you are ever in a safe position to do this objective, you should. In early ranks, it's very likely that you'll be able to grab a ton of them. Just keep eyes on your health and make sure you're really safe while you're doing them. You can probably even go to the enemy side of the map to take theirs a good amount of the time too, but just know the risks of doing so. Keep eyes on your minimap. I guess tip 2.5 would just be the minimap. You should be using your minimap incredibly often in Deadlock. A very large portion of my time is spent looking at it to try to figure out my next move, like seeing what jungle objectives are available, but also to see where the enemy team is so that I can maybe make a play off of someone who's overextended, or know that I can push an objective because there's a lot of people at a different spot in the map. Get used to looking at the minimap. Tip number 3 is the build browser. When you first boot up a character in a match, the game will give you a default build for that character. While this build isn't necessarily bad, it's not great either, and it lacks a lot of guidance. Enter the build browser. This is a community-driven browser where people can create their own builds and share them with others, usually with some sort of 6-digit code. You, as a new player, should take a look at some of these builds and review them to get familiar with how they work. Alternatively, you could take some time to make your own build or modify an existing one for yourself. A lot of guided builds tend to have a buy order, which you might hear as left to right, which means just buy the items left to right. As you get more familiar with the game, you can make judgment calls on when to buy certain items, or if you want to grab something to fit the situation, or maybe just your personal preferences. For example, I have a friend who really likes active reload, despite it not appearing on many builds. If you plan on going left to right, you can set up the build queue, which just automatically buys items for you as you approach the shop, reducing downtime looking through menus. Don't forget that you can sell items as well for half their cost. This is a bit more prevalent in much later stages of a match where you might want to swap out a tier 2 item for a tier 3 or a tier 4. One mistake I have been seeing some people make is buying items left to right a bit too literally though. A lot of guides will have optional items that you would want to get for special situations. I've seen quite a few people buy literally all of these items, be stuck with 9 tier 1 items very early, and then just have to sell them pretty much immediately, which is just a waste of money. Be sure to read each section closely to make sure you're not stocking up on a bunch of junk items that just don't make sense to get in that moment. Also remember that a good amount of items upgrade into other items in later tiers. You might find yourself capped on items but rich on souls. Look in the full shop to see if any upgrades make sense for you to get while you're item capped. Tip number 4, secure your souls. In lower ranks, people often do not secure their own minion kills. I'm not sure if this is laziness or they just don't know, but if you are in the lower ranks, a great way to gain soul advantage is to try to hit denies as much as possible. Really, in all ranks, you should be trying to do this as much as possible. Certain characters, like Paige, are not great at last hitting, so take advantage of that weakness. I would say characters with semi-auto weapons like Geist, Holiday, Doorman, Shiv, maybe Abrams, are weaker last hitters because of the single fire nature of their weapons, but they can still last hit just fine, they just need to be pretty accurate. Keep note of your own ammo for securing kills as well. Nothing worse than running out of ammo, trying to secure a kill, only for you to have to reload at the last second and watch the enemy deny you. This happens to literally everyone, so don't feel too bad. Also, melee killing minions does not spawn the floating soul. You automatically secure it. So if you see a teammate going for a melee kill on a minion, try to let them have it. Alternatively, if you see an enemy player doing a lot of melee kills on minions, try to get in their face and parry them as they go for a minion kill. Oldest trick in the book. Players in low ranks tend to not parry, nor do they expect to be parried. So mastering the parry will net you a lot of free damage and kills, although this strategy is harder to pull off as you climb up in rank. It is a good thing to practice because in the mid to high ranks, parries are everywhere and it will be something that you need to eventually learn. Tip number 5, fight the mid boss whenever you have a big life advantage. In lower ranks, and you're not going to believe this, people just don't do the mid boss. Mid boss is a game-winning objective. Right now, respawn timers in the game are linked with how long the game has gone on. So, if you're 30 minutes into a match and you kill 4 of the enemy opponents, that is a great time to go kill the mid boss, since they can't respawn for a very long time, which means they can't really stop you. This will, more often than not, generate a 9v6 situation for your team, assuming you get all 3 of the rejuves, and if you're up enough in souls on the enemy team, this can usually just end the game with a strong push to the enemy base. After you win a team fight, ping the middle boss by clicking on it or calling out in voice comms and get it dead. Speaking of comms, tip number 6, use the voice lines to communicate your intentions. Deadlock has a lot of different character voice lines that you can customize on the voice line wheel. Callouts like, I'm going to shop, retreat, I'm going in, I see this enemy, my ult's on cooldown, are all able to be used. So if you don't want to talk, then using these voice lines is the next best thing, and communication is one of the most important things in this game. The amount of times I've gotten into a fight thinking my teammate was there when they were doing something else is uncountable, and while some of that responsibility is on you for not paying attention, a simple, hey, I'm going to shop goes a very long way. In fact, I would go as far as saying that people respect the in-game character voice callouts more than they respect the average person talking in voice chat. Try to do both, but the voice lines are very, very good and very, very helpful. Okay, so those were some pretty basic things, very self-explanatory in terms of what I'm hoping you'll do in a game. Now I want to talk about stuff that's a little more abstract, a little more advanced. This stuff isn't as clear-cut as just, go do XYZ, but rather are things to constantly be thinking about and trying to improve as you get more and more games in. Tip number 7, the Guardian will not save you. The Tier 1 Guardian objective can be a formidable foe very early on in a match. But unlike a game like League of Legends, this defensive unit is not going to insta-kill you. In fact, it can be parried by going up close to it and hitting the parry button, disabling its attack for a brief time. Just because you are next to your Guardian does not mean the enemy team cannot reach you either. There are ways of getting to enemy heroes that involve taking very little damage from the Guardian, meaning you are never really 100% safe unless you're in your base. Some characters like Geist and Ivy have long distance spells that they can throw at you back at your shop, for example. Lash can close gaps very quickly and combo you for a kill. To tack on top of this, one of the worst feelings in Deadlock is being not quite hurt enough to warrant going back to base, but not quite healthy enough to skirmish with the enemy team. You need to play very patiently during these times. Farm the heal balls from the medic troopers and just wait until you're in a better place. If you need to go back to base to heal, then do it, although you should avoid going back frequently as this will cause you to miss out on souls quite a lot and leave your teammate vulnerable to attack. One thing to note about very early kills in the laning phase that I notice far too many people doing is overstaying their welcome on the tier 1 objective and not backing up early enough. Respawn timers are really short in the early game. After a fight, the winning team is usually beaten up a little bit, maybe half health, maybe worse, and they will overstay their welcome on the objective, trying to deal a bunch of damage to it, then get caught when a full health enemy comes flying back in and kills them right back. After you get a kill, do 1, maybe 2 mags worth of ammo on the Guardian, then get back to safety. Investing into items like Healing Right or Extra Regen is rarely a bad idea if you find yourself falling behind. Yes, it does delay your main build, but presence in the lane is vital to your success, and if you're constantly dying or going back to heal, you are going to be an easy target much later in the game, trust me. Most people are going to look to see who has the fewest souls and then target those people because they are the easiest people to kill. Something that is nice about Deadlock though, is that even if you have a bad lane, if you are diligent about farming, you can stay in the game a good amount of the time. I have had games where I've died 4 or 5 times in the lane, but as long as I stuck to playing defensively and farming back up, I'm right back in the game. I've had games where my laning partner and I completely stomp the other two players in the lane, but they're neck and neck souls-wise 25 minutes into the match. The game is not over just because you lost your lane or your Guardian died first. That lead needs to be maintained by the enemy team, and that's not always a guarantee. Plus, even if you're having a bad lane, your teammates might be doing well, which can balance the scales. Although if all of your lanes are losing, it's going to be tough. Finally, while certain characters can counter others, every lane has its own experience. I've had matchups that I thought were unfavorable that I ended up dominating. I've had matchups that I thought would be good for me, and I got owned. Very rarely do I think you will have a lane where both you and your teammate are either directly countered or will completely counter the opposing team. Don't be afraid to skirmish, but know your limits. If you're playing against Drifter and Haze as a Dynamo and Lash, they have a lot of ranged firepower against you, so you can't play this lane the same way that you would play a different matchup. The biggest factor in these fights, I think, is just knowing the characters and what they are capable of, which will come with experience. I do want to do a full video on the laning phase in a similar style to this video because there's a lot to discuss about the laning phase, despite it only usually lasting about 10 minutes. The one thing that I will say is that double support characters in the same lane is generally not a great idea. Like Kelvin and Paige, for example, that probably shouldn't happen, so try to make a swap to balance that out. Tip number 8, always be farming. Money is one of the biggest problems that a new player will experience, mainly in the form of not having a lot of it or not knowing how to get a lot of it. I know it seems obvious in a MOBA to say that you should always be farming as much money as possible, but it's very easy to get distracted in Deadlock. This is a game that demands a lot of your attention because any lapse in that attention can mean that you'll fall behind. The laning phase will end, you'll start roaming a lot, nothing really happens, and then all of a sudden you're down 3k souls to your lane opponents. Trooper kills, you might hear me say minions, they're troopers technically speaking, are the most efficient form of gaining souls, specifically in a lane by yourself, which isn't usually going to happen until after the laning phase is over. Any opportunity that you can find to grab a big trooper wave, you should try to grab it. 2 people in a lane is fine, 3 people is starting to push it. Minimizing lost trooper waves, aka waves that die to objectives or other troopers, is a big part in keeping your souls up for the entire match from start to finish. In fact, getting to trooper waves is one of the highest priority things you can do in Deadlock because not only do you get a bunch of money, but you also protect your objectives. Now, there is a lot of nuance there. You shouldn't default to going for trooper kills over literally everything else all of the time. It's just more of a general guideline. That being said, sometimes the game is as easy as just babysitting your lane. If you kill the enemy's tier 1 objective first, it is very easy to say, okay, yippee, I won the lane, it's time to roam around. And sometimes, yes, you should do that. But the enemy team will tend to sit in that same lane to get your objective down. So, if your laning partner leaves, babysit the lane a little bit while keeping yourself as safe as possible. After a certain point, I would say around 15 minutes into a match, the tier 1 objectives are barely worth defending, but the walkers are almost always worth defending. If that means you gotta sit in the lane, kill troopers, hit some jungle camps, and then come back to the lane, that is rarely going to be a detrimental act for your team. Hell, sometimes the enemy team might ignore you, and you get to shove the lane into their objectives, potentially even taking them out. It's not very exciting, but it can win games. One thing to keep track of are your jungle camps, even while laning. Tier 1 camps spawn at 2 minutes in, and if you're in a lane with easy access to a Tier 1 camp, you should be trying to kill them at the 2-minute mark on the dot. Alternatively, you should try to steal the enemy camps if possible if they're not on your side. It's not going to be that many souls, but repeated kills will slowly start to give you an advantage. The same goes for Tier 2, Sinners, Boxes, all of those things can give you small advantages over time, which build into bigger advantages. The ideal would be to clear a trooper wave, hit a jungle camp, then come back for the next trooper wave, but troopers take priority. These Tier 1 camps also respawn really fast, so be sure to check them often. After the laning phase ends is where a lot of people tend to struggle because the structured part of the match is now over and the entire map is open. I still struggle with this, but a lot of those priorities from the laning phase do somewhat carry over to the mid game. You should still be trying to get trooper farm first and foremost. Sinners should be another high priority after that due to the buffs and the money that they give. The soul earn at lower ranks is going to be more easily run because people just tend to completely ignore it or not pay attention. That can be a massive amount of souls for just running across the map. But at the end of the day, even doing a run of the map for boxes, which should be one of the lower priority things you do out of everything that is possible, is still a decent use of your time because you are at least doing something. Look at the minimap, find a goal, pursue that goal if possible. If that goal is not there or it's not possible to do, you just kind of go down the list, right? Are there any trooper waves? Are there anything pushing your objectives? No? Okay, well then maybe you start looking for potential ganks on opponents or objective kills. If there's nothing there, you look for some sinners. If there's no sinners, you hit the jungle. If there's no jungle, you hit some boxes. You do something. You just gotta be doing something. You should always be thinking about your next move, your next goal. The game demands a lot from you as a player because if you don't pay attention, someone else will, and they will end up winning. Tip number 9, overextending and overcommitting. This is going to be your first lesson in map awareness. Overextending is when you put yourself too far into enemy territory without teammates nearby and or without knowing where the enemy team is. This puts you in a lot of danger because you don't know if anyone is coming for you, and if they do come for you, you won't have any help. This doorman is overextended. There is absolutely no one nearby to help them out. While he does have a fair amount of money compared to the enemy team, he is not so strong that he's able to take on a 2v1. Doorman is also not great at sieging stuff this early in the game, especially with their items. Therefore, after a trooper wave, Doorman should have left this lane to go back to safety and do some other objectives. Instead, they overstay their welcome completely, have no exit strategy with some doors, and they just get killed. This is a very simple example of overextending. Overextending is not just a solo thing either. It could be 2 people who are then met by 3 or 4 people on the enemy team. This game sense will come with time, many hours, but generally speaking, once you're past the midway point on the map, if you don't have vision of the enemy team, you're entering the realm of overextending. If you're really far behind, this might not even be the halfway point of the map, it might just be right outside your base. Overextending is not a solo thing either, it could be 2 people who are then met by 3 or 4 people on the enemy team. An example of overcommitting would be like sending 3 or more people to a single lane to deal with a bunch of troopers that are pushing your base in a non-urgent situation. While it is very tempting to want to pick up a huge trooper wave, sending that many people causes 2 issues. Number 1, you're going to split all the souls, which is a bit more relevant earlier in the match. But 2, you're going to lose a lot of map control, since you're all dealing with a problem that could be handled by one person. There might even be someone respawning on your team who could handle that problem as well, which means that those 3 people can stay more present on the map or pursue some kind of an objective. Now, if the enemy team is pushing with those troopers, sure, that will call for a proportional response from your team. Be aware of overcommitting too many people for similar reasons. 4 people responding to 1 person could reveal to the enemy team that the rest of the map is open for the taking. Yeah, you might defend that walker, but your other walker just took a ton of damage from someone split pushing. What about a good overcommit? Maybe there are 3 people on the enemy team pushing a walker, and your entire team is close enough to deal with it. You send the whole team to deal with those 3 people. Well, yeah, the enemy team knows that you're all there, which gives them some room to do stuff, but your team just killed 3 people. If it's late enough in the match, or maybe if people are quick enough, that's a great time to go do the mid boss, which, as we discussed, tends to be a game-winning move. So yeah, the enemy team might have gotten a walker or something, but your team just killed the mid boss, which you can then leverage for one of their walkers or the urn or another team fight. Essentially, if you're going to respond to something that the enemy is doing in an overwhelming fashion, you then need to use that response to create something of value for your own team after the engagement is over. Don't be afraid to communicate this to your team. A simple like, hey, we just killed 3, let's go mid, can go a long way. Also, you can use the function keys on your keyboard, if you have them, I guess, to observe your teammates. The camera will switch to them, and you can see how a fight is going, which goes into my next point. Resist the urge to help teammates who have put themselves in a horrible position. I know you want to help them. You want to try to save them. I understand. More often than not, all it's going to do is get you killed as well. Maybe if you have special support items, you can help, like if you're playing Kelvin with the rescue beam and you can physically pull them away from the danger. Otherwise, if you see a teammate fighting 1v3 pretty far away from you, maybe they're deep inside their base for some reason, you must resist the urge to help. Yes, there are some times where there are enough teammates around where helping makes sense. Every situation is different and you do need to react accordingly. This Victor was in a position where I had no way of entering the fight to help. They were half HP by the time I could get even close, and they're eventually intercepted by 3 people on the enemy team. If I went in to help, I just would have died too. I've tried to help out in so many situations in hopes of just not being called a slur on the internet, and it's never worth it because 99 out of 100 times you're just gonna go down with the ship. And if someone is calling you a slur because they did something stupid and you didn't want to help them, mute them and report them because they're a loser. If you find yourself in a situation where you are the 1 versus 3 teammates, most of the time you should just tell people to let you die, don't come help, etc. It will save people a lot of hassle, as you will be able to tell very quickly if a fight is winnable. And most of the time, it's not going to be. If a fresh 1v3 is winnable for you, well, then the other team is probably already lost. Tip number 10, buy utility items. While higher ranked games will feature a lot more use of utility items, in lower ranked games, basically nobody buys these. Utility items are items that might not directly contribute to your build, but they help you either secure kills or shut down opponents. Debuff remover, knockdown, slowing hex, curse. These are all items that are very strong, but because they don't always directly fit into builds or increase your power in a dramatic way, people just won't buy them. Debuff remover can completely shut down an annoying enemy bebop just spamming bombs in you. Knockdown can stun that annoying Vindicta that's always floating in the air. Slowing Hex can stop Lash from jumping all over the place for a little bit. Curse can put a stop to anyone for a few seconds. Healbane can maybe stop that Victor running rampant with their healing. These items are very strong and people will often not see them coming or not build around them, like Vindicta not buying Debuff Remover to remove an incoming knockdown anvil. Yes, I know you're going to be missing out on Boundless Spirit or whatever, but Haze is 6v1ing your team, and cursing Haze will do a lot more than some extra spirit power. Buy these items to shut down problematic opponents. You don't and probably shouldn't be buying all of them because you need to be able to contribute to a team fight yourself, but 1, maybe 2 per match would be a good start unless you're dominating so hard that there is no need for them, or rather the enemy team needs to buy them for you. I know this is a more cut and dry, okay, yeah, buy some items, got it kind of tip, but active items tend to be a weakness for new players because you'll just forget that you have them, and I know this because it took me a very long time to get comfortable using active items. Finally, tip number 11, power spikes. A power spike is when you gain a significant amount of power, whether through buying items or upgrading abilities, although usually both around the same time. For example, Dynamo's first skill, the knock-up attack, gains a significant amount of damage when it reaches maximum level. This, combined with hitting the 4,800 soul investment bonus on spirit damage, makes it so these stomps start to become massively threatening to the enemy team. Maybe on top of that, the item that you bought was rapid recharge, so now you get even more of these stomp charges. Your strength has gone up dramatically compared to everyone else the moment that this happens, which means you're much more effective until everyone else starts buying. You could also be catching up to people who were ahead, and now things are more even, which the other team might not expect. What I'm trying to say is that after you have a big increase in power, you should try to use that in a fight or capturing an objective to catch the other team off guard. I think that's a good stopping point for now as far as new player tips and tricks and all that is concerned. Feel free to leave some of your own advice in the comments because there is absolutely no way I got to everything, as this was more for newer players to the game or people in lower ranks. Feel free to come ask me questions in my live stream over at twitch.tv/Dado. I am more than happy to answer or refer you to someone who would know the answer. Best of luck out there. Just remember, always be farming. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.